As I grow older, I begin to understand villains and anti-heroes more. Why they turn out the way they are. Why they sway from what is perceived as the morally righteous path. A well-written hero is someone whose personal sense of duty doesn't waver at the face of their problems. But a well-written bad guy is someone who was dealt a bad hand in life and broke under immense circumstances. You want to believe that had things gone a different way, this person would be living a different life. But as a good person, in my opinion, no one personifies this more than the character Akira Nishikiyama from the Yakuza games. In my last video essay, I talked about the life of Zhuge Liang, basically relaying historical and romanticized information about Kong Ming. In this video, I analyze and try to explain the character of Nishiki, a man who went from Kazuma Kiryu's sworn brother to an enemy that had to be put down. Sometimes, great character development doesn't have to be that the character becomes a better person. It could be that that character ultimately turns out worse. The events of Yakuza 0 take place during the 80s bubble economy of Japan. This was an era that was comparable to the roaring 20s of America, in which people were partying and spending money like crazy. Early on in the game, as we play as Kazuma Kiryu, we meet Kiryu's sworn brother, Nishikiyama, whom you can tell from just looking at him embodies that era, dressing flamboyantly while also having women flock towards him. Nishiki is a man who is well adjusted to the lifestyle of a Yakuza. Nishiki tells you that he gives women money so that later on he can use those women to get in good with higher ranking Yakuza members. Because people are usually too scared to get close with any long-time member of a Yakuza. Compared to Kazuma, who works as a debt collector for sleazebags, Nishiki seems like he's successfully doing things that will help him ascend the ranks. This, however, would ultimately change, as the events of Yakuza 0 would ultimately pave the way for Kazuma Kiryu's legend to rise as the Dragon of Dojima. During the events of Yakuza 0, Kiryu becomes public enemy number 1 of the Dojima clan. This tears Nishikiyama between two sides, his ambition to rise up as a Yakuza and his loyalty to his brother Kiryu. Chronologically speaking, this is the first instance we see Nishiki crack under pressure. You see, Kiryu faces his problems head-on with his iron will. Nishiki, on the other hand, deals with his problems emotionally. Faced with the fear of Kiryu being captured and tortured by the Dojima clan, Nishiki attempts to put his brother out of his misery himself. But at the same time, he is unable to pull the trigger. He breaks down and cries as he cannot bring himself to kill his brother. All those fancy clothes, looking like a proper tough Yakuza, all of those are just a facade. Because in reality, Nishiki loves his brother, and in Nishiki's words, without Kiryu, he is nothing.
打てるわけねえよ。やっぱり俺はおめえと一緒じゃなきゃダメだ。極道として。俺なんか今まで生きてこられたのもおめえがそばにいたからだ。俺はおめえが一緒じゃなきゃ何やっても半端で意味がねえんだよ。俺だって同じさ。お互いまだガキだってことだ。つまらねえ火種つけちまって、世話になったおやつさんにも迷惑かけて、それで死んで片付けちまおうなんてよ。極道がどうとか言う前に結局俺は半端なガキでしかねえ。俺 俺だって人思いに死なせてやるなんて言い切ったくせにマジでダセえよ。
だよな。でもいつまでもガキじゃいられねえ。
The next time we see Nishiki after that moment, he finally decides to side with Kiryu. This scene, and every moment Nishiki is in Yakuza 0 with Kiryu, solidifies the bond Kiryu and Nishikiyama had. They are brothers, best friends, karaoke and drinking buddies. They grew up together in the same orphanage and joined the Yakuza together. At the end of Yakuza 0, Kiryu is about to finish off Shibusawa when Nishiki tackles and prevents Kazuma from beating Shibusawa to death. In this moment, Nishiki saves Kiryu from going down a path of no return. He states that killing Shibusawa will not achieve anything. Nishikiyama successfully pulled his brother away from the darkness. It is just unfortunate that Kiryu could not do the same. Yakuza 0 showed just how much Nishiki loves his brother. As I mentioned, Nishikiyama handles things with his emotions. If Nishiki could easily throw his ambitions away for the sake of his sworn brother, imagine what Nishiki would do for the woman he loves. The answer to that is patricide. Nishikiyama does the unthinkable and shoots Dojima family patriarch Sohei Dojima to death. Dojima tried to force himself on a woman called Yumi, which Nishiki obviously cared for. Driven by emotions again, Nishiki kills Dojima, which even he himself is shocked by his actions afterwards. As the thought of the consequences of his actions set in, Kiryu decides to take Nishiki's place and take the blame for the murder of Sohei Dojima. This event would ultimately lead to Nishikiyama's descent into the darkness. Between the timeline of the end of Yakuza 0 and the start of Yakuza 1, Kazuma Kiryu has become widely respected and admired as the legendary Dragon of Dojima, while Nishiki is now known as an ass-kisser. The tables have completely turned. When the two were fairly new to the Yakuza life, it was Nishiki who was thriving. But it seems what got Nishiki ahead in the 80s does not garner respect anymore. People often began to compare Nishiki to Kiryu, viewing Nishiki as useless, whether it was members of his own clan or people Nishiki was close to. The insecurity and anger starts to seep into Nishiki, because he knows he is living a life that does not belong to him. Had Kiryu not taken the fall for the death of Sohei Dojima, it would be Nishikiyama in jail, and Kazuma Kiryu would be the patriarch of his own family, and not the other way around. The humiliation and shame Nishiki suffered from everyone was too much. He finally breaks, with Kiryu in jail, Yumi disappearing, and the death of his sister. Nishiki has nothing left but his ambition. Nishiki lets the darkness take a hold of him.
誰がヘタレだって？誰が桐生よりも根性がないんだって？メイドの土産に教えてやる。堂島組長をやったのはこの俺だ。 じじゃねえか。そうだ、そうだよ。とっくに道は決まっていたんだ。堂島を殺し桐生を見捨てたあの時から。やってやるよ。俺は必ずてっぺんに立ってやる。そのためなら何人だろうがぶっ殺してやる。
Fast forward to 2005, Kiryu returns from his 10-year sentence in prison. He finds out that Nishiki is now a completely different person. The Nishikiyama clan is now a major player in a Tojo power struggle, and he is willing to do whatever it takes to become chairman of the clan, even hurting those who were once close to him. He shoots Shintaro Kazama, the man who was like a father to him and Kiryu. He uses Reina and then ultimately discards her, letting her men kill her and Shinji Tanaka. He is a man fully driven by his emotions, even shooting his own men. The only semblance of humanity Nishiki had is his love for Yumi. But even that is tainted when he knows Yumi still loves Kazuma Kiryu. Even so, he doesn't even know if he hates Kiryu. Maybe he didn't even hate Kazuma, Shinji, or Reina either. But that night, the night where he shot Sohei Dojima to death, it ultimately set him down a dark path of doing whatever it takes to rise up the ranks of the Tojo clan. No matter who he kills, in the end, Nishiki finally takes his fate into his own hands. He now embodies his tattoo of the koi fish, symbolizing perseverance and ambition. Kiryu acknowledges the fact that they can't go back in time to change how things went. The only thing left to do is for the dragon and the koi fish to clash. Kiryu is the latest obstacle Nishiki has to beat in order to become a dragon himself. Much like the legend of the koi rising up to transform into a dragon.
もう十何年も前か。お前は竜を、そして錦山は恋を背中に入れた。入れ墨ってのは背負ってるそいつ自身が光らせるもんでな。今錦山の背中はすげえ色に輝いてるはずだ。これでやっとあいつはお前と対等に張り合える。
俺と
黄河を泳ぐ恋は山脈を経てやがて龍門に入る。龍門を登りきった恋は龍に生まれ変わるんだ。背後に龍になるためにはお前という相手が必要なのかもしれねえな。
Their showdown, however, would ultimately end with Kiryu victorious. Nishiki has lost. His ambition, which was the last thing he clung on to, was crushed by the man whom he had lived in his shadows for so long. At the end of Yakuza 1, Nishiki sacrifices himself. He saves his brother one final time by killing Jingu and blowing them both up along with the stolen money.
好きにさせてたまるかよ。
最後のけじめくらい
俺につけさせろ。
やめろ。やめるんだ。錦錦
whether you see it as an act of redemption or defiance. Nishikiyama's life has ended with a bang. He went out fighting. Nishikiyama went from a one-dimensional villain in Yakuza 1 to being one of the greatest written characters in Yakuza 0 and Yakuza Kiwami 1, in which Yakuza 1 was remade and further explained. What led to Nishiki becoming evil? At the start of the video, I said that I had begun to understand villains more, and Nishiki I definitely related to in some ways. As a person who has experienced being compared to others, it is a terrible feeling, and I remember every single time that has happened to me. Imagine being in Nishiki's shoes, when it was happening to him every time. I can understand how frustrating that must be. In life, I never felt like I was first place in anything. There was always someone who was smarter than me, more successful than me, more respected than me, or someone who was better looking than me. And I know that eats you alive. I believe that Nishikiyama's inferiority complex led him from seeing Kazuma as a brother to seeing him as a legend that he had to put down in order for his own legend to rise. The worst thing Nishiki had done was due to his involvement. He had directly and indirectly took away everyone Kiryu cared about. Kazuma, Reina, Shinji, and Yumi. Had it not been for Date and Haruka, Kazuma might have fallen into the same despair Nishiki felt. And that's what Kiryu had compared to Nishiki. There were always people flocking to Kiryu's side. Nishiki did have Reina, but even she betrayed him. A man alone is truly someone without anything to lose. As this video ends, I'd like to ask, did Nishiki become a dragon in the end? He may have lost a fight against Kiryu, but with everything he did to rise up, did the koi become the dragon?
So tonight 今夜もまた tonight ため息つく一人きりじゃ上書けない思い